today for this segment, we have one of our CEOs here on stage or in the studio, Mr. George Barcelon from the Philippines and ASEAN Back Philippines. Okay, so here's our first speaker that I'm introducing. Oh, wait, I think I forgot something. As with all the other panels that were presented to you today, we have segment sponsors. For this particular one, we would like to say thank you to Yazaki Torres Manufacturing Inc., First Philippine Holdings, and to GT Capital Holdings. So let me remind you, today's our last panel is a roundtable discussion. Big Brothers helping our fellow entrepreneurs. Okay, so I've already introduced our speaker here in the studio, Mr. George Barcelon from ASEAN Back Philippines and leading the Philippine Chamber of Commerce Inc. So I mentioned that we are here on stage with him, but please don't worry, we are taking safety precautions. Every one of us are swabbed on a daily basis because we are following guidelines for gathering in public events. We would like to say thank you to our partners who have made this happen. Particularly, I believe our partner here is Health Direct Network and our team, our crew here who have been very cooperative no matter that daily they go through the pain of getting swabbed. Maraming salamat sa inyo, sa inyong pagpapasensya. Now, let me introduce the other speakers. This time, the speakers on Zoom. All the way from India, you heard him on Monday during the MSME conference, and we had so many questions when he was here to talk about MSME. The founding CEO of NatGrid, ex-president of the Reliance Industries, distinguished fellow and author, Captain Raghu Brahman. Our next speaker, the chair of ASEAN Back Malaysia, one of our mentors in ASEAN Back, Tan Sri Munir, Datu Dr. Mod Munir Abdul Majid.
Hi. Afternoon.
Good afternoon, Tan Sri Munir. Next, we would like to call on the 2020 chair of the ASEAN Business Advisory Council, from Vietnam, Dr. Don Duy Kong.
Oh, good afternoon from Vietnam. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. We were very happy to hear your message at the beginning of the conference today. Thank you for that. Now, let's call on the chair of ASEAN Back Singapore, Dr. Robert Yap.
Hi, mabuhay.
Hello, Dr. Yap.
Hi.
Let's now call on the council member of ASEAN Back in Myanmar, Mo Kiao.
It's still morning from our side.
Good morning. Glad to have you here. And so that makes up the panelists of we have one more. I apologize. We have the council member of ASEAN Back Laos, Mr. Tanong Sin Kanlagna.
Hi.
Thank you everybody for joining us today. May I please now welcome again on screen our moderator for this discussion, Professor Aniko.
Thank you very much. You've been this amazing panel too, everyone. All right, because I have to actually get all the men to give very short, very specific answers. All right, because we stand between the raffle and the closing. So I'm going to get very targeted and I will have certain focused questions for each of our panelists. And you know, Jopin, I really thought that the theme shouldn't be just about big brothers, but it so happens that we have all the men. Yeah. So that's why. but it's all about the bigger companies and the bigger, more successful companies helping our smaller MSMEs. So I'm going to start with Captain Raman first. And I think maybe we could mute our line for those who are not speaking so that I don't get the feedback. Can we do that? Perfect. Thank you so much. So maybe Captain Raman, I thought that for you, given that this is the round table and it's the end of 2.5 days of great celebration, could you tell me what could be the biggest risk companies are facing today? And what can we do, or what can the big companies do to help the small companies going forward?
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I think, the big risk is being faced by the bigger companies, not by the smaller ones. And I think companies need to realize that, because the larger companies, as you're aware, don't have the agility which is there with the MSMEs. So if there is a product line which a large company has created, and that product line now needs to be very quickly switched, packaging needs to be switched, something needs to be done, they actually have to depend on the agility of the MSMEs, because the larger companies cannot change their assembly lines. You know that. In big companies, billion-dollar companies, any sort of a change management will easily take between 2 to 3 years if it is successful. Whereas MSMEs, if they are brought in to participate in I think a lot of large companies still think of the MSMEs as vendors. They don't think of them as partners. I think that mindset change has to happen with larger companies, because if they don't do that, they will not have the ability to respond with the kind of uncertain, ambiguous situation where literally, I mean, we just heard the previous speaker talking about how rules are getting changed literally every week. There is no large corporate in the world which can change its SOPs in matter of weeks. It's just not possible. So I think the risk actually lies with the larger companies if they don't realize that they will have to leverage the agility, the nimbleness, the fast turnaround, which only MSMEs can do. And they can only enable that if they start treating the MSMEs as partners in their value chain instead of vendors who have to be let into the business.
Very nice. So that nicely dovetails to Robert. So Robert, I'm going to pull you in here. So you set up something called Scala, Supply Chain and Logistics Academy, and you've actually used that platform to help the other entrepreneurs up and down the value chain. Can you resonate with that statement that Raman made just now?
Yeah, hi everyone, and Annie, thank you for the question. Scala is one of the passion that I have in terms of looking at how to upskill, right? Basically the industry as a whole. So when we are actually doing that on a enterprise level, our own company is actually doing your own, right? So we built EduRise program to skill our people. Then we look at the ecosystem and also the kind of a trend, right, that are actually changing the economy very quickly. So what happened is that then we decided together with the government to look at creating a Queen Bee kind of a leadership. Queen Bee, so we
Thank you. Yeah, right. Not about brothers.
Set it up, create an academy called Scala, Supply Chain and Logistics Academy, to upskill and reskill basically all the kind of professionals in the whole industry. It's not just for our company, but including competitors and especially the smaller and medium enterprises.
So training and development seems to be something that a lot of you are very passionate about. So I'm going to use this question for Mr. Basalan, George. Yeah, so, yes, given that, this pandemic is unprecedented and so many of the life skills that have been acquired over the life, not many of us have actually gone through a crisis like this. And this is actually cutting across all countries. No ASEAN country is actually spared. It's just in different degrees. So, in your mind, what has this pandemic shown about the skills gap that our next generation leaders would need? And how can PCCI or ASEAN BARC help our next generation entrepreneurs or even the current generation of entrepreneurs?
Well, Annie, I mean, the word paradigm shift has been oftenly spoke of. And this time, because of the COVID-19, we really experienced this paradigm shift. And especially for the young people now, they have gravitated towards the digital. And we're happy that a lot of MSMEs has taken traction using the digital platforms. And yes, we do subscribe to upgrading their skills and having to be able to expand their knowledge. On the other side, in the Philippines, we encourage more rural development. You know, Philippines is an agricultural country, but we still have a concern for our food self-sufficiency. And the government has this program encouraging people now to go back to their provinces. And this is where, through different programs that our chamber has, to encourage people to really take up, the new method of farming, so that we can be, they can have a livelihood that to sustain them over this period, and not only over this period, COVID-19 pandemic, but throughout their lives, because it's a very basic sector that for the Philippines. Thank you.
Yeah. So digitalization is actually the powerful tool. It can build a much more inclusive supply chain, and in fact, across border as well. So I'm actually going to go to Dr. Dong. And, in Vietnam, like Philippines, we also have a lot of the tech people and the agri base. And I know that everyone is jump starting. So, how could countries like Myanmar and Vietnam leverage on the digitalization and leapfrog the more developed brothers of the ASEAN region? And between, Umor Kyo and with Dr. Dun, any one of you. I'm just putting the question to cover the two of you together. No? I'm keeping Tan Sri Munir later. Yes.
Okay. Dr. Don, please.
Okay, I go ahead. Yes. Okay, I think we are living in a changing time. If you look at the pandemic or digitalization, also looking at the economic integration program, like last time in the last 37 summit, we on signed the kind of agreement on RCP. So I think that a lot of opportunities, also challenges we are facing, especially the kind of countries like a second group of ASEAN, like Vietnam, Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia. We're facing a lot of challenges. But besides, we also have a lot of opportunities in terms of digitalization. If we take advantage of the kind of digital technology, we can move forward. I think that in the time to come, I think three factors can affect our countries. The first one is that, the change now is changing faster. So speed is one of the factors we have to face and also to look at. And also the kind of scale, because of the economic integration program like RCP, is open a lot of markets for our businesses in Vietnam and also in ASEAN. And I think that, the third factor is that we have how we have optimized our production and our operations so that we can overcome the challenge and piece of opportunities. So I think that, the key is that we have to keep up the change, and also we have to find a way to take advantage of digital technology to scale up and grow up our businesses, and also have optimized our businesses so that we can overcome and catch up with the opportunities coming to us.
Very good. And can we have a Myanmar example?
I think the best for Myanmar, it wasn't even about digital leapfrog. It was more about digital blast off. 10 years ago, the penetration of landlines, if you were lucky, were 2%. As soon as the telecom sector was liberalized, I think it's now 98%. Some people say it's even 105% because people got 2 SIM cards. So what has that brought to the pace of development? It's actually, one of the most amazing things that you see about technology is the way that the computers become more powerful. And in the same sense, this digitalization, especially with the mobile phones, the connectivity, that has come out in a massive, massive peak. I think what's just needed really is how more accessible can you do it? One of the interesting things is everybody talks about digitization, but when we do studies like a developing country in Myanmar, your telephone bills, if you're really at it, could be up to a week's salary. So it was all fine saying digitalization. I mean, all of us being in a situation where we don't have the internet connection or our phone goes down. But how about the people, the growing population, the underdeveloped, where just 1 hour a day or 2 hours a day is cost poor people a lot of money. So I think the business sectors and the telecom sectors and the government has to find ways to make this a little bit cheaper. I believe that the private sector has so much innovation, so much technology to be able to do this. Your previous session on fintech, the gentleman was saying, you do not need to go to a bank anymore. Exactly, it's all there, it's all available. So it's there, it's coming. I hope that the business sectors and the government can make it more accessible in terms of costs. So I think that's a major challenge for us there.
Very good. So, all of you speak so passionately that this is the time where the big brothers could help the SMMEs. But Dr. Rahman reminded us that actually the SMSEs are also the ones that are helping you. So I'm going to go to Tan Sri Muni. Tan Sri, I love the last 2 days where you were actually flooding my mailbox with RCEP articles and the whole promise and potential that came from the whole group of companies coming together. So some of the people who are typing are actually asking, is there any chance for MSMEs to have access to all this international context? It would be so good if we powered the brains, the digital capabilities across borders in not just ASEAN, but across RCEP. Tan Sri, all yours. How do we
Ellie, thank you.
How do we help the small companies?
And I think, good to see you, everyone. I hope everyone's keeping safe. I think, let me begin by actually underlining the point that Captain Raghu Raman made about smaller companies being more agile and able, therefore, to respond to a new environment, new needs, and so on and so forth. I mean, I would, sort of say that is very true in my own experience. When I started CIMB, when it was very small, it's so much easier, to have the fundamentals working together, and so on and so forth, and so establish a platform for growth. Of course, it's grown tremendously since then. And similarly, when I started the Malaysian Securities Commission, from scratch, it's much easier to define what you want to do, to get the people that you want to work together in the way you want, and then you build. And so, therefore, you're more agile, you're better founded. And so now, small companies today with these challenges and the expectations from RCEP want to ask themselves, how do I take advantage? I'm facing this huge challenge of survival, and you offer me this huge opportunity which I can't reach, right? This is your point, Annie, that you're making. I think the point is that we should remember is that, under the Amen offering, mentorship offering, we're talking about getting onto that value chain, and then bigger companies inviting you to come onto that value chain, so as to be one of the parts that supplies the final product to the final destination market. And the great thing about RCEP is the certificate of origin has now been formalized. If at some point in the value chain you are an ASEAN or an RCEP country, your goods will be accepted in the final destination RCEP market. And so it's a great thing to get onto the value chain. Now the point is, if you read the fine print, however, of the RCEP agreement, there are 20 chapters, and there is very good chapter, I think it's chapter 14, that focuses on MSMEs. You don't see an agreement actually just having, focusing on MSMEs or SMEs. And this one talks about lifting them, helping them, and bringing them into the market. Therefore, there is a formalized, legalized commitment by ASEP members to help the SMEs, quite apart from things like AMAN and so on, which can in a business sense help them. But there's a formalized commitment to do so. On the other side of it, however, not all markets will be open to them to the same extent.
Yeah.
There are many annexures, in the agreement covering different countries, different of those 15 countries. They have commitments which are different in terms of opening up, whether it's 92% or less than 92%. So the less developed economies in ASEP are given time. There's as the Indonesian negotiator, I think you read my piece, mentioned it is a simultaneous start, but differentiated timetables, in terms of the opening up. So there's opportunity in ASEP. It's a huge market, as we all know. And I think in this dark time when everyone is overwhelmed by the pandemic, fears and there is a chink of light. There's light at the end of the tunnel, and I think ASEP provides that.
Okay.
Thank you, Annie.
Thank you very much. And I know I'm stepping between the raffle time, so I'm going to ask you one final question, and it's across the whole panel. So we do have some questions coming in, so I'm going to group them together as much as possible. So you've given us a lot of potential, opportunities here. Is there anyone who could jump in quickly and say, is there a showcase model or example that we have actually helped many of our MSMEs to conquer or have some kind of regional impact? Anybody can come in with an example or not? Then I'll use the example to field the questions across.
I mean, you look at the Lazada, for example.
Okay, very good.
Lazada provided very quickly during the crisis a platform, the e-commerce platform, for small companies to reach, their customers, their end market. So there are, especially the platform, the e-commerce platform is very important. Anyone who provides that digital platform to SMEs will be helping them.
So Robert, given that you are in the logistics and the supply chain business, have you been able to tap on a platform like Lazada, it need not be Lazada, in which you could actually grow in speed and scale?
Yeah, I think this is also something that we are actually also driving some transformation, especially on the retail sector. With this COVID, retailers are all very badly hit, all suffering. For companies able, right, to actually take the digital journey or have an e-commerce fund, I think these are one of the just that the retail is facing. For companies are able to start up and have some form of e-commerce riding the Lazada platform on, there is still another problem scalability, the problem on the back end. Right? So when you go to the Lazada, it's not the enabling services, the marketing, and all those things that you need to be able, right, to allow your product to have a chance of selling, right? So on which we're talking about. So on our initiative, we actually drive a retail check for the entire system, right? So it's not just the retailer, the malls, right? Are actually collecting the rentals, how you get them to change their model of collection. And then you also have brand owners, right? Then you have the tech player, you have the fulfillment partner, then you have the last mile delivery. So you have all this kind of a entire ecosystem. So now we have a very program that we are looking at upskilling or reskilling, right? They could come from other industry, they could be in the same industry, but somehow in the old school. Now they have to migrate and move to e-commerce and go to own journey and so on. So we actually do that, creating jobs in the new area with a lot of help by the government in terms of reskilling, funding the reskilling. So these are one of the very decisions that we're taking. But I talked a little bit of this trying to create a national unified system, which is called the OMS 4.0. OMS 4.0 connects basically your front end. If you have omni-channel in different e-commerce, whether it's Lazada or even in our own website, ysg.com.sg. So you have also that kind of a ability to allow all all the SME players, the moment they have a product, put the product in any of these omni-channel, able to sell the product. And then we connect it on the back end. So the OMS 4.0, as we talk, as we connect to the back end, where you go through fulfillment, scalability, sustainable scale, and so on until the last mile. I think these are including cross-border. So these are the things that we are doing to ensure, besides being able to sell the product, they are able to build that scale so they grow in a more sustained fashion. Yeah.
So Robert told us it's about the whole integration, all right? So, and now I'm going to ask any one of you to jump in. So digital skills, you have actually a big divide because you actually have some MSMEs driven by very young next generation, and you have MSMEs that are actually from previous generation. So how do we help the whole value chain digitalize? Anybody can jump in.
Okay, yes.
Sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, and just to finish off your previous questions about, are there any fine examples of a platform that has to do with mentorship? I think one of the things that we as in Business Advisory Council was able to do, and we're very, very proud of, is during Dan Siri's chairmanship, we was able to officialize, legalize the ASEAN Young Entrepreneur Association. Now, this is very, very important because basically we were like their big brothers. Some of our members were still young is under 45. And they said this would be a good idea. I believe that Robert was quite instrumental in giving the support in forming the ASEAN Young Entrepreneur Association. This platform knows that they can go and talk to the leaders of ASEAN. They can tell us what they need to do. But more importantly, I believe that is giving a lot of ASEAN young entrepreneurs confidence in going to the next step. So this is a great example of brotherhood in terms of what we can do. So I asked Joey to continue the program. A lot of countries are now, and especially in Myanmar now, our mentorship network and system was supposed to be done by ASEAN back Myanmar, but it was done by the Myanmar Young Entrepreneur Association, which was obviously part of the ASEAN Young Entrepreneur. So I urge all the attendees here, and the people who listen, please go to your specific country. Any of the ASEAN countries has an ASEAN Young Entrepreneur Network over here. And I also ask that we, ASEAN Bank, always continue to support them. Thank you very much.
Good. So join the Young Entrepreneurs Club. What about the old entrepreneurs? How do they become a part of this? Hey, all right. Even the lifelong learners need to learn, right? So what are we doing about that? Come. Anybody?
We learn from them, actually. It's turned opposite. We are learning a lot from them. They are pressuring us and telling us what to do.
Very good. So mentoring doesn't mean it's from the old to the young. Mentoring could be reverse mentorship, right? And I think we all recognize that. But what else are we doing to close the gaps between value chains and between countries and sectors?
Annie, if I may,
Yes,
there are companies which provide consultancy services, even to SMEs and groups of SMEs. How not to be afraid, of new ways of doing business, and not be afraid of the digitalization challenge. And I know a few of these companies have been operating with very small, like Malaysian SMEs, to say, look, this is what's happened, this is how we do it. It's not rocket science, you can jump. So that helps, that helps. The other bit is, of course, governments. Governments offer these skilling and reskilling funds, right? And I think this morning I wasn't in on that. And like Raja Singham, his BAC actually provides online classes on how to be reskilled. So there's a lot of effort that can take place. Everyone should be a leader. Everyone should be a leader. Including the old hacks in old SMEs.
So take ownership for your own learning, but learning is only in the mind. How do you turn it into action? Come on, you can do better. You are my, all right, captains of the industry.
You know, Annie, I'd like to share with you.
Yes.
We're
Go
talking
ahead.
about big brother and small brothers.
Yes.
You know, what I've seen things that were the tying up of the small brothers, like the small farmers. We tried them directly with the groceries, and that really helped them because now they do just-in-time deliveries and they reduce their spoilage. And throughout the COVID pandemic in the last 7-8 months, it's only the agri sector that has positive improvement over the last year. But that's, aside from that, I think nowadays the role of the big brothers, you know, the KYC, you know, knowing your customer. And this is where we use our platform to get the smaller guys to know what are the needs of the bigger companies because they form the supply chain, and it has been fruitful to some of them, and I think most of us in the business is well aware of that. At this point in time, we talk about inclusivity, and it's really pulling up the small guys, sharing with them the proper informations for them to continue with their business and the growth along the way. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Great example. So supply chain, sustainability, and of course, connecting them with the big buyers so that they will always get that flow of financing. So supply chain financing in times of COVID. So those are all very exciting topics. Yeah. And now I have to do one final round. So what's your vision for ASEAN BARC, all right, champions going forward? I know next year we are not going to get out of what we have inherited this year, but what can be done in the next year through this ASEAN community and through all the captains of industry that's on this round table right now? Can we do a round table going one by one for me to help close this session? Your vision and your mission for next year. Maybe we start with no particular order. Dr. Rahman, you're not from ASEAN. What would be your wish list for the ASEAN?
I think we should look beyond the COVID. I think, as Dr. Robert pointed out, this is a paradigm shift. And in a paradigm shift, we can't be thinking tactically. We have to think with a much, much longer vision. I don't think the world is going to go back to normal. If it does come back with the vaccine and all that, we will have a hybrid way of working. I think large businesses need to change their mindset. In large businesses, there are two departments or divisions. There is one department which is the procurement department, and the procurement department's mindset is to create as many hurdles as possible before a partner or a vendor, as they're called, can enter into the system. So even if it is a small job, the kind of documentation they'll require, the kind of balance sheet they will require, the kind of number of people, it's all very, very bureaucratic. Ironically, big businesses also have another division, which is constantly looking at new opportunities and looking at new businesses they can invest in, looking at new technologies. I think they need to shift that mindset and say that when we are looking for partners, when we are procuring goods and services, we need to have a mindset of an entrepreneurial investor who is looking at new technologies, who is looking at maybe small entities who may not have the financial strength, who may not have the office space, who may not have the documentation that is necessary to cross the hurdle. We need our younger leaders to be looking in an exploratory manner space of MSMEs, to discover MSMEs rather than waiting for MSMEs to discover your need and come to you. Because as you're aware, and many of the panelists will agree, MSMEs have very little bandwidth. They're focusing on their core competence. They don't have the bandwidth for marketing, for sales, for relationships, for inordinate number of months that they have to wait for an RFP process to get done. They don't have that bandwidth. And I think just like companies have a division or a fund which is constantly looking at investing into new ventures, I think that's the mindset they need to bring. They also need to encourage many of their younger leaders to go and work with MSME. We need to actually create that culture that in large businesses for 2 months or 3 months, our middle level leaders, they go and do an internship with the MSMEs so they realize what are the challenges of an MSME. They realize that what it takes for an MSME to be able to break through this bureaucratic corridors of a big business and end up over there. Unless we create that kind of a framework where we look at them as partners and we enable them to come into our ecosystem, not because we are doing them a favor, but because we see them as a potential of taking our organization into the next level orbit, giving us that extra edge, telling us about a technology that we are not yet aware of. You know, large bureaucracies, even when the technology enters into the market space, it takes several months, if not years, before the large bureaucratic organization starts adopting it. So we must use these MSMEs as early on. We must use them as our scouts, our reconnaissance who are telling us how the world is changing, what is happening, and we must find a way to harness their entrepreneurial energy in the largely bureaucratic organization. Large organizations are bureaucratic. They look at tried and tested methods. They have a fear of failure. Whereas young MSMEs have a hope for success. They try to do new stuff. I think we need to find a way to channel the energy and the mojo from them, rather than looking at how we are helping them. That's a very condescending attitude. I think a lot of us still have that condescending attitude. I am doing you a favor. It's the other way around, actually.
Very nice, Dr. Rahman. You're singing my song. So I'm happy to hear this one. Robert, I'm going down my list. Yeah? Robert.
Yeah. So I think, this is something that I always been passionate about, looking at how we actually leverage ASEAN. A lot of time we say, okay, ASEAN, how to work together because we have different development, different level of value that we're bringing to the table on, right? But I think this is very timely and also a very key today, especially with the China, because China, US, even though Trump is out, I think the US policy is going to be there. So the China outflow, basically of manufacturing, ASEAN especially, I think big. So how do we take advantage of it? Vietnam is a big benefit, right? By nature of its readiness and its growth capacity. But Vietnam cannot do all those. So the growth is much more, it will spill to ASEAN. And how does ASEAN as a whole contribute and take advantage, right? So the diversity and all that we are talking about. I think that's one area that we need to look at how we can integrate our supply chain. Diversity become an advantage because we can do different parts of the value chain and connect so that we are totally very competitive on the world stage. I think it's very important. Right? For example, even in Singapore, right, we have this electric vehicle manufacturing that's coming out, huge electric manufacturing facility, and the supply chain is going right from North Asia out in ASEAN, right? So that if of that to ASEAN will miss opportunity for everybody, the entire ecosystem is about Singapore doing that advanced manufacturing, but it also will benefit Malaysia, Thailand, and so on that are feeding, including Indonesia, feeding that part of the supply chain into the finalization of the product. So I think it's very, very important opportunity that we have. How to harness that? How do we work together? Right? In ASEAN, be able to sort of make ourselves stronger as a totality. You know, in supply chain business or in anything, but as strong as link. So if we make a point, integrate our supply chain, what will happen is that for weaker ones and whatever is there, I'm sure it is in everybody to help ensure that you raise that level, right? So that you're strong in totality. It's an integrated supply chain. So I think it's very important.
Very good. Thanks, Robert, giving us the inspiration. Josh, final word.
Well, we're facing this pandemic, and it's going to be with us for some time. The whole ASEAN is about 600 million in population. I wish down the line that in the near future that at least some countries can get the licensing of producing this vaccine here in this region. We're too independent on the other for the source of the vaccine. And because of that, once we have that, one sector that really can benefit, you know, the tourism and the travel business has been hit very badly with this COVID. And And I look forward to wherein there is a solution, at least to mitigate with vaccine or whatever, so that we can reopen the travel and tourism business again. And I wish to see my friends, my ABAC friends, hopefully on face-to-face in Brunei for the next year of ASEAN meetings. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much, George. Pansri?
Oh, Annie, ASEAN Back, together with the joint business councils from across the world, okay, have published something called Pathway 225.
Wow.
Okay, and this, the most important aspect I would like to see is that the decision-making process in ASEAN is faster and facilitated. Therefore, we have proposed the setting up of a high-level special commission to act as a kind of EXCO in ASEAN to make fast decisions, including on the 225 proposals that we have put forward, okay? Including particularly on sustainable development goal public health, okay, and the digitalizing public health. So that's the place. And then relatedly, faster decision making is essential in ASEAN, not just to do that, but also to make sure that ASEAN operates effectively in RCEP. Right? It's dealing with 5 other countries which are nation states. They make decisions quick. They are one country. We are 10, and we make decisions so slowly. How are we going to interact with those countries in RCEP to our advantage? Or it's going to be to our disadvantage if we interact slowly. And only 1 or 2 ASEAN countries might benefit. That could cause ASEAN to not quite disintegrate, but to fray and lose actually the momentum, the steam for its own integration process. That, I think, is very important so that ASEAN can make decisions, good decisions, fast.
Very nice. And I got 3 more voices. So please, Umur here from Myanmar. I think we forgot to ask Laos. Is Laos here? Yes. Can I have Laos, please?
Laos go first and I'll follow afterwards.
Yeah. Laos?
Okay. Okay, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so just to add, I think that at the end, we are now in the new normal. So what I want to just say is that we need to prepare for the new normal, which is coming. So I think that we used to have this pyramid of small, medium, and then large, and then XL company. But actually, in the real world, we have many pyramids. Actually, we did forgot companies like Dell started with $1,000 US, even more with $1,350, and the Pizza Hut you can name on. So I think nowadays the big company needs to look into the small company.
Yes.
The government needs to look on the private sector, and the private sector needs to help the government. So I think we need changing our mindset and then work together, collaboration. And I think, like many mentioned, ASEAN is now plus 10. We have plus 3 with East Asia, and last week we plus 5 suddenly. So I think it's a very good timing to collaborate in this new digital transformation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very well said. And could I have the last 2 voices from Myanmar and then Vietnam to close?
Yes, from the ASEAN side, what we're going to do is I do believe that Brunei is going to be the next chair, so they've already started the process. But I think it's going to do a lot about reskills, new jobs. What we have to do and have to accept that so many jobs have been lost, so many businesses have been lost. What are they going to do? How are they going to survive? That is the number one thing that we need to do. Basically, I do believe under Brunei's chairmanship and also the things that are happening in Singapore, looking in from the Singapore example of re-educating and reskilling, this is something that's very well needed, purely because of the fact that you need to give hope. There's lots and lots of people, especially in Myanmar now, garment industry, 70, 80,000 people are now out of a job. There's just no way we can what they should do, how they should do. And again, lots of businesses, and especially a lot of SMEs, also their cash flow has dried out. They don't see new markets over here. So I do believe that ASEAN and the next year, and I do think this is one of the major impetus of Brunei's chairmanship, and I'm sure all our business council members here will be putting a big focus on retooling, re-educating, and basically giving hope to businesses after this horrific pandemic.
Thank you very much. And Dr. Dong?
Okay, thank you very much. I agree with you that we have some challenges this time, like we say about pandemic or economic recession or disruption of supply chains. And this time that also we have opportunities, like we have digital technology, also RCEP is coming, it's the world largest trade agreement in the world now. And I think for ASEAN to move forward, I think that we have to do something under the statement of our leaders in the last summit, In that also our leaders commended the ASEAN back recommendation pathway 2029, 5 and things like that, So we have to follow and do something associated with the statement of our leaders to move forward. And for ASEAN, I think that, legacy project of ASEAN, I think is very important, We have to carry out successfully our legacy project like Smart City from Singapore, Amen from the Philippines, or this year, Vietnam digital startups toward ASEAN resilience and sustainability and things like that. I think that we have to carry out successfully our legacy project. Also, initiate other new ones, so that we can make contribution for ASEAN forward. And in this area, I would like to share with you some kind of information on our Vietnam legacy project. Our this year legacy project called Digital Stars. So our mission is to create an ASEAN-wide digital transformation enabling business environment and facilitate the SMEs digital transformation to successfully start up and scale up and sustain their business, especially in pandemic time. And I think that is a very good platform for ASEAN businesses to work together. We expect to have 3 outputs. The first one, we try to create the ASEAN Startup Network we call web portal. I think that is a very good platform for ASEAN businesses to share our experiences and information, what is carried out in ASEAN in terms of startup and things like that. And second is that we try to make some kind of report on business output of ASEAN. We try to, make some kind of policy recommendation on facilitating digital transformation in ASEAN, especially find out some kind of gaps between the countries in ASEAN, so that we can try to have some policy to narrow the gaps between ASEAN countries. And the last one, third one, output, we try to have some kind of showcase of digital stars. We try to introduce the kind of innovative, affordable, and available digital transformation solution in ASEAN to show the SMEs, especially so that they can follow and make things happen and things like that. So I think the legacy project for ASEAN in the time to come is very important for ASEAN in terms of make recommendation also to facilitate the business environment in ASEAN to overcome the kind of challenges and also to catch up the opportunities coming to us in this time to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dong. Thank you, gentlemen. I think I'm so inspired. I don't really know how to summarize, but I could hear loud and clear that all of you believe whether you are big or small companies, you need to be agile. You need to be very bold because you have no idea how the future really looks like, but very strong collaboration is needed. So the ABC approach to build speed, scale, and sustainability. So on that note, a big thank you. And now we all come in front of the camera with a big smile. Can we do that, please? Thank you, gentlemen. I'm passing the mic over to Jopin now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Annie, and thank you to all our esteemed speakers.